No, Finan told him. But she will. When we marry, and we return to be your neighbors. Oh Utad, I have loved her, love her still, and against my own judgment, I had sworn never to love again after Ethn. He lapsed into silence. They marched on, and Finan, who had no other reason to speak of it other than they were going into battle and there was a good chance that either one of them or both would not return alive. I remember seeing her on your roof, in Winchester. I had stepped outside one night, I was singing a song, something from her and someone joined in. He grinned. She was taking your silver from the roof. What? And you let her? I figured she must have needed it, and that some of it was mine in any case. He chuckled. She found a lot of your treasure hoards over the years. He stopped. I sent young Finan to her. You know she will have gone to Alba? Utad told his friend. You know we will probably be facing her, along with the two warriors of the land that she loves? Finan stopped, a truly horrified expression on his face, and Utad wondered how it was that this thought had not occurred to him. My God, no, by the mother and all of the Sich. Why did you not tell me? He looked back to the city. Utad, tell me now, what did you say to him? He's your nephew, regardless. Finan looked at his friend, then to the earth on which they were walking. Christ, no, don't tell me. And I would not, Utad told himself, for the words had not been as kind even as Finan had used. Something about what sounds like a Gale must be a bastard Gaelish traitor, and to get back to the cannibals, to his whore of a mother and to his bastard father the king of Alba who would soon be overthrown and stuck like a pig. Utad rubbed at his left hand. Like hers, Utad knew, gained from a spear in the hand as she had fled Bibbenberg, Osrith had skewered the drunken him to the table when she had fled Ethelwold's torture of her. I wish I wish I had never treated her like I did, Utad confided in his friend. Finan nodded, slowly, sadly. Me too, Utad, I wish that too. And I want you to know, whether she is your sister or no, she will be my wife after this battle. And Utad of Bibbenberg had nothing else to say to Finan, his warrior and greatest, dearest friend. 88,888,888 Sister. And so, Osrith dressed for the battle she knew would be to come. First, she stripped naked and washed herself all over. She tore a hole in the wolf's head banner enough to put her head through and then pulled on her breeches, tucking the banner into it. She was Bibbenberg first, and second, she was of the line of the Henoled. This fact was well known now, and Osrith did not try to hide it, though she made sure she was never seen to be acting on it. And Caeligulid, she scratched with a knife into her arm the letter G. Gwyddulf of the Henoled. When she was close to her Cymric side she could hear the Morrigan most clearly. She, as queen of the Sich, would be there. Of that, Osrith was sure. Of Alba, she had. Then Irian, Buie and her first marriage and tagged Sikhs, from her hand marriage to the young Gale, who she had first loved. Then, of her hair, Osrith cut it close, large strands falling to the gates, her hair jewel absent. But nevertheless, she was Kriegikvind, battle maiden, styled by Eric Thurgilson, and around her wrist she wound the red and gold of Wessex, the green and gold of Mercia, the yellow and red of Northumbria and the blue and white of Domnall, her first king, her liege lord to whom she had sworn. Osrith was Brittany, she was Irian, too. And though she had sworn she would never go out to fight in a battle between those she loved dearly, it was a fact that she was riding out now, would take the road west and be with the armies as they were. The armies were convening. This was a fight which had long been coming, and Osrith could not sit back and wait for it to happen. She would be there. Fate was inexorable, so said her brother. She was going to Brunanburg. 88,888,888 Sister. Behind Osrith, determined to honor their promise to the Lord of Bibbenberg, Caltagar and Bin of Berwick. 88,888,888 Brunanburg. Domnall Uineel crossed the battlefield to represent Constantine as the King of England, and the King of Alba stood apart from one another. The ex-King of Dublin and pretender to the throne of Ofoic stood beside him. Lord Utad. Beras. To his credit, the exiled Prince of Irion did not flinch. She is with you then? I may ask you the same. Except that she was back at Seaster, under the supervision of Bean and Caltigar, her warriors. Then if she is with neither of us, where is she? Domhnall asked, looking genuinely concerned. Gone. Where? East, I hope. To greet the hoary pretender, Utad added, meaning Constantine. To my land, Utad, Domhnall reminded him. Because your king likes old meat. Say that again, Domhnall Uainil told Osrith's brother, drawing his sword, and you'll be food for the carrion. But Utad had given up listening to the swagger words. He had seen someone, next to the warriors behind Domhnall. No one stopped Finan as he strode over to his son. Finan big. He brought me son to this mal. Finan's words, in Gaelish, had all the eyes of the attendant company who had crossed the gap between the two armies on the exiled Ullaid warrior, those of warriors who he had known, ones who had once ridden so freely to give their service, and their friendship to Osrith, Gaels, Pitlanders, and beside Constantine, Malcolm, next in line to the throne when Constantine died or gave it up, and Selark, his own son, who had been given not once but twice as hostage to Utad. I just wanted to see you, young Finan said, plaintively, as Domhnall stood beside him. Is Mater here? In the Burh, Seaster, Finan told his son. Osrith looked on, and saw them too, Hildebrand and Hildebrand, just like their son's story. What of your idea to Aethelstan, uncle? Finan beg asked Utad. When Utad did not answer, Domhnall put in, last time, Aethelstan attempted to hold Alba to ransom, succeeded from what I recall. And you were offered a huge land-holding in Wilton, sir, for Bibbenberg. You'll be tempted, because you want Bibbenberg. Young Finan fell silent beside Domhnall, his mouth falling open, not used to the direct talking, especially from Utad. I want my lands, Lord Utad, but, like you, I will never see them again. Uainil lands? Utad asked, and turned to Finan. Yours by rights, are they not? You outrank Merchada. Do you not? Finan knew I can chop. Finan gave a half smile. I do indeed. I hear his days are finished, Utad told Finan, for effect. The rule the now are the Norse Anlaf Guthfrithson. He looked at Domhnall and the Irian prince looked back. Aethelstan overreaches himself. And why not? But he will never get obedience in Alba, the people before the Romans live there still, he told Utad, happily. Yet the Gaels are invaders, their name means just that. Yet Constantine has united Alba, and it is Aethelstan, now, who has the challenge at his door. And before Utad could reply, Domhnall looked to Finan, and said in Gaelish, his voice dropping low, I would have you know, King Finan, I did not touch her. We did not. His voice trailed off. Finan fixed Domhnall with a glance, and then broke it, exceeding the man's word. You truly do not know where she is? Utad concluded, looking across to the two kings, standing before one another, Anlaf to Constantine's side. Perhaps all could have been sorted out between them then, had they withdrawn their blades. He could be beside Aethelstan in an instant, and his men, and other companies. Others beside Constantine, Utad was sure, alliances pulled tight like woven yarn brought together as cloth. And that was why there were two armies with thousands of men in them, about to face one another. She is not with you? Domhnall asked, urgently. She is not with us. Utad thrust his fist beside his thigh. Better that than in the man's face. Let's hope that she has seen sense. He saw Domhnall smile. And when has she ever done that? Where are those Berisas? Utad asked Finan, bringing his friend around by the shoulder before he could think to challenge Domhnall by remembering he was nominally Osrith's husband. Protecting her, ready to go back with her to Berwick as soon as possible, Finan told him, though there was little hope in his face. Then she will be behind Seaster's walls, Finan told him, and Utad turned for Domhnall. Uainil had stepped towards them. You cared for Ethan. I will always be grateful, Domhnall told him, and then he, too, turned and strode back across the field, and went to stand beside his king. Berisas? Who were they? Osrith, who was just behind one of the mercenary companies, looking for Elfkin, drew to a stop. Then she saw them, or rather, they had let themselves be seen, Kaltigar and Bean, who had been shadowing her. Her chest melted, her resolve to fight at the sight of them, and she turned and dodged through walking columns of men of a variety of companies. You cannot go on to battle with these men. Finan is no longer your lord. Your lord is Domhnall Uineel. We never heard that, said Bean, grinning at the falsehood. We never heard that we had a new lord, only a lady, who we must bring to safety. And Osrith went with them, past the Mersins, past West Saxons and East Anglians and a great deal of Danes, to whom the promise of their settled life was better than the idea Thanos and Danes would, should they win, displace them from the lands they had farmed since the agreement with Alfred. She nearly got to the gate, too. But it was at that point that two other men strode out, two other warriors, clad in mail and new linens, trod the line, fed a sword. It was that she recognized. So, after letting Bean and Kaltigar get ahead of her, she doubled back and went through the western gate, and joined any company wearing Ethelstan's livery. Brunanburg, morning, 27th of October 937. I swear that we will wed when return. Finan put a finger to her lips and pulled Osrith to him. I know in my heart he is my son, Osrith, he had told her, just before Miral had taken her to Ethelstan. It does no harm that the king of Alba calls him Ildup. He had kissed her forehead. He is safe and loved. What more could I want for him? What more, indeed, Osrith thought, as she dodged through lines and past captains. He would be fighting with Constantine, and there was little Osrith could do to stop that from happening. What she could do was what she was trying to do, catch up with Uhtred. She had to stop young Uhtred from taking the field. When it came to it, who would have thought it would come down to this, that Osrith had given up everything, in exchange for her family line at Bittenberg. Because young Uhtred, with his infant son and another on the way, were the future. Osrith was Anglish as much as ever she was Gaelish or Briton. At that moment, it mattered, the bloodline of Uhtred, and all the Uhtred's back into the past, back to Ida the Flame-Bearer, who had climbed through the rocks and defeated the Britons and established a kingdom at Bibbenberg. All of that mattered to Osrith. It was the only thing. She had to keep young Uhtred from fighting, so he could return and restore the family that had been displaced. You should not be here. Finan, just a few people's distance away, would say those words to Osrith. If he turned then, he would say, I know you can fight, Osrith. The Lord knows you can fight. But what will get you killed is everyone you love. Finan beag over the Uhtred here. A man pushed past Osrith as he stumbled towards his line. She twisted a little in the mudded ground and fell against a second man beside her. Watch it. He screamed at her, pushing her back, and Osrith staggered behind. It meant she was now further behind. Of course you'll love him, he's your brother. Would you kill him standing next to that shit Constantine who you swore your sword to for the rest of your life, which I must say, was pretty damned thoughtless? Would you kill young Finan standing between you and Uhtred and your brother? That's what it will mean if you cross to Constantine. Finan's imagined words made her turn her head. Osrith could easily slip out of line and stride over to the Northern Alliance. It was common practice before a battle that anyone who wished to change sides could do so. He was right, he always was right. Wait for me, Osrith, Finan might have said. If he had known she was just behind him, his voice would have been hollow. He would have shown his fear to her, which he had never seen before, which would be filled with years of pain and death, loss and success. Find me. If I don't find you, take my body back to Ulster and bury it in the coast. I am here, Osrith thought, as she gained through the columns of companies. A captain raised a hand to alert his men and she ducked under his raised arm. I am just here. What? A voice beside her made Osrith turn round. Where Bishop Oswald was, Osrith could not say, but she was now looking into the face of young Uhtred, her brother's and Gisla's younger son, whose life she had tried so hard to ensure she saved, with his mother's. She had managed half of those aims. Back down in Winchester. Give me your armor, Osrith hissed, as her nephew smiled in recognition of his aunt. "You need to live this day for whoever is overlord of Britannia at the end of today." It took a moment for young Uhtred to reply, his face brimful of excitement, and Osrith thought, how silly he had been. Uhtred would have told him to remain behind as well. "Aunt, you are fighting too." But Osrith put a hand over his mouth, and clamped it here, firmly. "You are my kin," Osrith scolded, ignoring the writhing young man. "All your father has ever done is to secure Bibbenberg for his heir. It is all lost. If you are—" It took a moment for young Uhtred to stop squirming, and Osrith waited for him to ask where young Finan was, but he did not. Clearly, Finan and then Uhtred's rebuttal of him was known. She was expecting an argument, but the mood of the field was somber, and Osrith's bluntness was effective. It was the work of a minute for young Uhtred to be wearing her armor and she his. Uhtred must have had the metal work commissioned. Young Uhtred was broader and taller than she was, it would have to do. But she was not satisfied until young Uhtred had hammered on the gates of Seistra again and had been admitted. Then, only then, did Osrith, brimful of the Morrigan, stride over to Uhtred's company, and take her position in place of her nephew, his son, the heir to Bibbenberg, between her brother, and the love of her heart.